How does a company go from selling dried fish and noodles to controlling the very screens you are staring at right now? Most people think of Samsung as a direct rival to Silicon Valley giants, but its origins are far humbler and far more strange. In 1938, Lee Byung-chul started a small trading company with only 40 employees. He named it Samsung, which means 3 stars, representing something big, numerous, and powerful. But at the time, those stars weren't shining over silicon chips or high-end smartphones. They were shining over exports of dried Korean fish, vegetables, and fruit to Manchuria. It was a simple business for a volatile time. Yet, Lee had a vision that transcended agriculture. He wasn't just building a grocery store, he was building a foundation. While other companies were content with local trade, Samsung was quietly observing the global shift, waiting for the moment when the world would trade its hunger for food for a hunger for technology. This is the story of how a small-town trader built a chaotic, multi-billion-dollar empire that would eventually force the mighty Apple to look over its shoulder. It is a tale of ruthless ambition, massive gambles, and a relentless pursuit of perfection that changed the global economy forever. By the late 1960s, Samsung was ready to gamble. They weren't just selling sugar and textiles anymore. They were eyeing the future. In 1969, Samsung Electronics was born. Imagine a company today trying to go from making flour to making semiconductors. It sounds impossible, right? But Samsung did it. Their first major hit was a simple black and white television. They didn't invent the technology, they perfected the process of making it affordable. By the late 1970s, they were churning out millions of sets, becoming a global manufacturing powerhouse. But there was a problem. Inside the industry, Samsung had a reputation. They were known for being cheap. They were the budget option, the brand you bought when you couldn't afford a Sony or a Panasonic. This stigma haunted the boardroom. They were winning on volume, but losing on prestige. The leaders realized that to survive the coming digital revolution, they couldn't just be a factory for the world. They had to become an innovator. They began investing every penny of profit into something most people didn't understand yet: semiconductors. It was a move that would either bankrupt the company or make them untouchable. They were playing a high-stakes game of poker with the global tech market, and the buy-in was their entire future. The year was 1995, and the new chairman, Kun-hee, was furious. He had sent out thousands of Samsung's new mobile phones as New Year's gifts, only to find out they didn't work. The quality was embarrassing. In a move that has since become legendary in business history, Lee gathered 2,000 employees in a courtyard. He stacked 150,000 defective phones, fax machines, and walkie-talkies into a massive pile. Then, he set them on fire. As the employees watched 2,000 years of collective labor go up in smoke, Lee delivered a chilling ultimatum: change everything except your wife and children. It wasn't just a PR stunt, it was a psychological reset. The message was clear: Samsung would no longer tolerate mediocrity. This bonfire marked the death of cheap Samsung and the birth of a quality-obsessed monster. They pivoted their entire strategy toward premium hardware. They began pouring billions into research and development, focused on one goal: surpassing the Japanese giants and preparing for a new challenger rising in the West. The fire in that courtyard didn't just destroy phones. It forged the DNA of a company that would soon take on the world's most valuable brand. Fast forward to the late 2000s. The world changed forever when Apple revealed the iPhone. While other tech giants like Nokia and BlackBerry were paralyzed by the touchscreen revolution, Samsung did something different. They didn't just watch, they reacted with terrifying speed. In 2010, they launched the Galaxy S series. It was a declaration of war. Samsung realized that while Apple owned the software ecosystem, they could win on hardware specs. They pushed the boundaries of screen technology, introducing the first Super AMOLED displays. These screens were brighter, more vibrant, and more immersive than anything else on the market. But Samsung didn't stop there. They noticed a gap in Apple's logic. Steve Jobs famously believed that no one wanted a big phone. Samsung bet the opposite. In 2011, they released the Galaxy Note, a massive device with a 5.3-inch screen and a stylus. The tech world mocked it, calling it a phablet that was too big for a human hand. But the consumers spoke louder than the critics. They loved the big screens. Suddenly, Samsung wasn't just following Apple, they were leading a trend that even Apple would eventually be forced to follow. The challenger had found its rhythm. Here is the paradox that defines the tech world. Samsung and Apple are the bitterest of rivals in the courtroom, but they are also the closest of business partners. This is one of the most complex relationships in corporate history. You see, while Samsung's marketing team was making commercials mocking iPhone users, Samsung's manufacturing division was cashed in on every iPhone sold. For years, Samsung was the primary supplier of the very processors and displays that made the iPhone work. In fact, when Apple transitioned to OLED screens, there was only one company in the world capable of producing them at the scale and quality Apple required: Samsung. This created a strange dynamic. Every time Apple succeeded, Samsung's component division made billions. And every time Samsung released a new Galaxy, they used the profits from Apple to fund their own competition. It's a high-stakes game of frenemies. They need each other to survive, yet they desperately want to crush one another. This dual identity allowed Samsung to build an incredible war chest. They used the massive revenue from being a supplier to fund the aggressive marketing and innovation needed to challenge the iPhone's dominance. It was a masterclass in playing both sides of the board. By 2011, the tension finally snapped. Apple sued Samsung for $1 billion, claiming they had slavishly copied the iPhone's design. This wasn't just a disagreement over a few lines of code. It was a global legal war spanning 4 continents. Apple pointed to the rounded corners, the grid of colorful icons, and the pinch-to-zoom gesture. Samsung fought back, countersuing Apple for infringing on their wireless communication patents. The world watched as internal documents and secret prototypes were dragged into the light. At one point, Apple's lawyers even held up both phones in court and asked if the judge could tell the difference. This legal battle lasted for over 7 years. It was exhausting and expensive, but it also did something unexpected. It cemented Samsung's status in the mind of the public. By being sued by Apple, Samsung was effectively branded as the only true alternative to the iPhone. If they were a threat worth $1 billion in court, they were a threat worth taking seriously. While the lawyers argued over patents, Samsung's engineers were already working on the next big leap, something Apple wasn't even close to doing yet. In 2019, Samsung decided to stop playing Apple's game and start their own. They introduced the Galaxy Fold. It was a screen that could literally bend in half. The launch was rocky, units were breaking, and the media was skeptical. But instead of retreating, Samsung doubled down. They refined the hinge, improved the glass, and released the Z Flip and the Z Fold series. This was a strategic masterstroke. While the iPhone design had become iterative and safe, Samsung was selling the future. They regained their reputation as pioneers. By creating the foldable category, they forced a choice. Do you want the polished status quo of Apple or the cutting-edge innovation of Samsung? Today, Samsung leads the foldable market with over 80% market share. They have successfully transitioned from a company that followed Apple's lead to a company that Apple is now watching with intense curiosity. They are no longer the cheap alternative, they are the high-tech disruptors. From dried fish to folding glass, the journey of the 3 stars is a testament to the power of constant evolution. They didn't just challenge Apple, they changed the definition of what a phone could be. So what is the lesson of the Samsung story? It's not just about tech specs or marketing budgets. It's about the challenger mindset. Samsung's history is a series of impossible pivots. They survived wars, economic collapses, and massive internal failures by being willing to burn their old selves to the ground to build something better. Today, Samsung is more than a phone maker. They are a cornerstone of the global economy, making everything from cargo ships to life insurance. But their duel with Apple remains their most public and defining struggle. It has pushed both companies to reach heights they never would have achieved alone. Without Samsung's pressure, would the iPhone have ever gotten a larger screen? Without Apple's perfectionism, would Samsung have ever reached such high build quality? In business, your rival is often your greatest teacher. Samsung started as a small trading company selling noodles and ended up shaping the digital world of the 21st century. The 3 stars that once oversaw crates of fish now light up the screens of nearly 1 billion people. And in the world of technology, the only constant is that those stars will never stop moving. What will they build next? Only time will tell.
I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this tech archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.